It's the first day of fall, September 22nd, 1990. And it's looking to be a glorious day. Come on along on the climb today. 30 miles west of Idaho Falls, in the sagebrush plain of the Snake River, we have the three buttes, the East Butte, the Middle Butte, and the Big Southern Butte. They're all landmarks in this country. Radio and TV towers are atop the East Butte on the left. Morning shadows are working their way across the INEL land and the sagebrush desert, looking to the Lost River Range. Argonne National Lab. And our destination today will be to climb in the Lemhi Range, which we're looking at edge on, with a prominent view of Saddle Mountain and to its right, Mount Hoops. Now we're into the Little Lost River Valley, and we're looking at the Lemhi Range. The two peaks that you see are the ones that we plan to climb today. The peak on the left we'll call Amy's Peak, and the peak on the right, Lexi's Peak. We will try to ascend up the ridge line on the left, and we're at the entrance to the Nicholson Sunny Bar Ranch right now. And we see Bell Mountain to the left in the distance. Soon we'll be looking to park the van and scout a route up the destination of that ridge of Amy's Peak. Oftentimes the hardest part of climbing a peak in this area is finding a way to get to it. Okay, we've parked the van, packed out, and got the motorcycle ready. It's 9:30 in the morning, and now we're going to go about the business of trying to find our way to the base of Amy's Peak, which will take us across the Little Lost River and into the foothills of the Lemhi Range. And we want to head up Cedar Run Canyon, and then pick our way up the north wooded ridge to our first summit. It looks like we're on the right road. This dirt track is moving into some cedar trees here. On my USGS 15-minute quadrangle map, this area is shown as Cedar Run Canyon, and as we look at the trail moving up into the canyon among the cedar trees, we see that's a good name. I think as we get into the mouth of the canyon, we should also find a little bit of water called Mud Spring. And then once we get into the canyon, our route will go up the ridge into the trees and then out of the trees. We've driven into the canyon about 5 miles now, and I just spotted a coyote over there on the hill. I guess we can't quite see it. Anyway, we're going to hike up that ridge and park the motorcycle shortly. We're in and among the sagebrush and the rabbit brush, and looking up canyon right at the mouth of Cedar Run Canyon. We've picked up aspen trees. They're just starting to change color to their beautiful yellow fall tinge. Oh look, here's what's happening. That coyote that we saw at the bottom must be part of a a group of coyotes, because judging from those antelope tracks over there, there must be a coyote up high, and he's scaring the herd of antelope down low, hopefully to the mouth of the coyote that is waiting for them at the low end. We'll have to watch what happens here. We've just parked the motorcycle and we're starting to hike uphill, and first we have to find our way across a stream. Well, it's nice to know that our route will not be totally dry. We've got some beautiful running H2O spring water, which we may need a little bit later in the day. We started down there at about elevation 6,800 feet at the Cedar Run Spring, and here in the desert west, every drop of water is spoken for, and our stream is no exception. There's the dry bed of Cedar Run issuing out into the Lost River Valley. One of the reasons that bed is dry is that the spring water has been diverted to a canal channel which runs out to an irrigated field. I don't know if you can see those deer and elk over there, but they must be in rut because they're just chasing each other around in circles. This is the time of year for such things. Our hike today is in the Chalice National Forest, and as we approach the lower level of the tree line at elevation 8,000 feet, we see that the lawn is well taken care of by the person responsible for keeping such things trimmed and in good shape. At this 8,000 foot point, we enter the forest. It looks like a fairly heavily timbered long stretch, so what we're hoping for are sufficient game tracks so that the bushwhacking isn't agonizing. Judging from the amount of terraces and deer droppings on the ground here, there ought to be sufficient game trails that will carry us through the forested area to the upper reaches of the mountain. It is a lovely day, no wind, crisp, sunny. We'll call this Indian summer in the Lemhi range. And we'll get back to you at the next view. I want to show you something stupid here. We're on a very steep slope. As we've mentioned before, the Lemhi and Lost River Range forests are very fragile. Here, probably some miner decades ago hacked down 2 trees, and at this point, can you see any other growth around? No, the trees in this area are lost forever. This is not a sustainable yield forest right here, and this is just total loss. Logging shouldn't be allowed in this area. It looks like 11,612 foot Bell Mountain will be a companion to us for most of the day. Scree and aspen on a steep slope at a high elevation would indicate an avalanche slope. On this rubbly ridge at 9,200 feet, trees do what they need to do to survive. Apart from that one avalanche-prone area, this would be a wonderful mountain to ski down. The slope is gentle. Everything we've done so far is just moderate hiking. Proof that forest fires work. New growth Douglas fir sprouting in the fire-enriched soil. As we approach the 10,000 foot level in elevation, the way has gotten a bit steeper. It's still class 2 hiking, scrambling over that wonderful firm quartzite rock. The climax tree at this elevation is the limber pine, which takes on a gnarled appearance. The branches resemble bottle brushes. We are on a tree-covered ridge at elevation 10,100 feet, headed towards Amy Peak, our first peak of the day, and folks, the hiking doesn't get any better than this. It's beautiful, crystal clear, quiet, thoroughly enjoyable. This ridge borders on sensory overload. It's beautiful. As we meet different rock types that erode at different rates of speed, our ridge has sharpened up a bit here. In front of us is our first destination at 10,723 feet, Amy Peak. And east of that, 10,946 foot, Lexi Peak. The two peaks are definitely related to each other, as we will explain. Scanning the upper reaches of Cedar Run Canyon, the crest of the Lemhi Range, it's taken us 2.5 hours to get to this point. Looking north to Bell Mountain, which is formed of a quartzite granite rock. The smell of sunlight on the pines is intoxicating. You'll have to take my word for that. Hey, not a bad camping spot for elevation 10,200 feet in the Lemhis. So nice that we'll just scramble up to our first summit and have lunch on the top. Join me, won't you? If you thought the lawn was taken care of at elevation 8,000 feet, here at 10,500 feet, it is manicured. And as promised, lunch on the summit. Before we build our summit cairn and name this peak 10,723 feet, let's take a look around at the surrounding peaks and country. The views of the other peaks in the Lemhis are exceptional from this summit. Straight ahead is the highest peak in the Lemhis, fourth highest in the state, 12,197 foot Diamond Peak. And if you look carefully, you'll see that Diamond Peak is holding a little bit of snow from the precipitation that we had here Thursday. It was kind of a medium cool rain in the valley. And scanning the crest of the Lemhis, next in view is Riddler Peak, which I climbed 3 weeks ago and claimed a first ascent of that. Climbed it from the opposite side as this. Doesn't look very climbable from this side, does it? Riddler is 11,598 feet, and it is the third highest peak in the Lemhis. And moving south, we have Big Boy, climbed earlier in the summer. Following the crest to Little Diamond Peak, which was climbed, 2 years ago, 11,246 feet. And the climb was made by that ridge and saddle coming up Bunting Canyon, which I think is the best example of a glacial valley in the Lemhi Range. Moving south, we see Joker Peak, just under 11,000 feet with its what is normally a wonderful snowfield. When I climbed that in May, it would have been a skiable snowfield. Nicholson Peak, 11,051 feet, quartzite granite, very much like this peak. And as we scan out into the Snake River Plain towards Howe, Idaho, and the Little Lost River Valley. Now the Lost River Range comes into focus as we look at 9,000 foot jump off peak, Rocco Pass, King Mountain at over 10,600 feet, the Ramshorn area, Jagged Peaks, and we were up there last week. We see, first off, Ski Dream Peak, 10,630 feet. North of it is the South Twin at 11,070 feet, which was climbed last weekend. Both of those peaks were first ascents. Moving north, we see the North Twin at 11,081 feet, the highest peak in that segment of the Lost River Range. First ascent climbed last year. Looking towards the west across the Little Lost River Valley, we see the Pass Creek area, Invisible Mountain, Mount McCaleb, and now we get into the highest peaks in the range. I have trouble identifying them from here, but we would have Mount Andrus, Mount Breitenbach, Mount Donaldson, the unnamed 12,200 foot peak, Leatherman Peak. There's another 12,000 foot peak, which may or may not be climbable. And Mount Bora at 12,662 feet, the highest peak in the state of Idaho. We have the Donkey Hills in the Little Lost River Valley, and at Summit Creek, the Little Lost River Valley would turn into the Pacimaroy Valley beyond it. Looking to the north, Bear Mountain was climbed as a spring climb. One I haven't done yet is Big Creek Peak, which is about 11,300 feet. Looks like Gunsight Peak. I haven't climbed that one either. And then as we move into Bell Mountain, you can see that the rock at the base changes to that nice quartzite granite, which makes Bell a fun climb. Following the crest of the Lemhis, now we're coming south along the crest now, we see Meadow Peak at 10,600 feet, climbed last year at about this time. And there was a late spring climb, the Incredible Hulk. The climb was made up that scree field on the left. The Hulk is not on the main crest of the Lemhis. Now we're coming back on the main crest of the Lemhis. And then we look at another offset peak, which is just south of Incredible Hulk, about 10,700 and some feet. With that reddish color, let's call that one Rust Peak. I have not climbed it yet. It's out of Rocky Canyon, and that's probably one to do next year. Following along, that's the Beaverhead Range, the Continental Divide in the background. But a little bit nearer to us, we have the Game Traverse, 10,020 feet, climbed earlier in the year, springtime. And that spur is being hidden by the peak in front of us, which is 10,946 foot peak, Lexi Peak, which we hope to be on within the hour. And behind Lexi Peak, we can see Squaw 1, Lame Jake, a summertime first ascent not too long ago. And then moving back to our starting point, peak 10,994 foot peak, the brow, I will call it, because of the top part that would look like somebody's eyebrow hanging over. And back to our starting point, Diamond Peak. I don't know how enduring these cairns are that I build, but hopefully they will last a lifetime or two. And this indicates that we are the first to be here. This is Amy Peak, named for Amy Bogger, my youngest daughter, born January 15th, 1986. And Amy, I don't know if you can see that in stone, but there's your name, A-M-Y, your peak. Can you see the cairn on top of Amy Peak? The top of that peak is predominantly gray limestone, as is much of the Lemhi's. Now we're headed over towards the saddle between the two peaks that we're going to climb today. And at this point we pick up slate. And then as we look down the route we need to follow along the ridge, looks like more limestone. Let's go. As we progress intermittently on and off the ridge between Amy and Lexi Peaks, this black rock I don't think is limestone. I want to say it's gabbro. It reminds me of the black dike material in the Middle Teton. So we've got some ridge walking and about a 500-foot climb up. Just before we summit Lexi's Peak, let's take a brief pause here. And just a little bit to go. This is always a moment of anticipation as we get to a new peak to determine if it's been climbed. All right, let's see if it's the first ascent. Oh. I'm trying to determine if ours is a first ascent today, and I really don't know. And what I'm looking at is this broken down round structure, which perhaps could indicate a prehistoric structure made by Indians, and it is just weathered over the years. Then again, it may just be a vagary of the action of the snow and ice. In any event, let's take the opportunity to name this Lexi's Peak in honor of my oldest daughter, Lexi Bogger, who was born June 28, 1979. We are on the main crest of the Lemhi Range, looking into Targhee National Forest now to Lame Jake, his Squaw 1, and his Squaw 2, following the spur off of Diamond Peak to Game Traverse. From Game Traverse we drop down into Rocky Canyon, and we see that there is some kind of trail down there. Rocky Canyon is definitely a canyon I want to explore, and we'll need to go up that canyon in order to climb Rust Peak. And from Rust Peak, the other offset peaks of the Lemhi Range. On the eastern side, the Incredible Hulk and Meadow Peak. It is 3 o'clock, and the sun is casting different shadows on the Lemhi's, the main crest, looking to Bell Mountain to our north. From Bell Mountain, we will scan into the Little Lost River Valley, looking towards the Salmon River, and then across to Idaho's highest peaks, the Lost River Range. For the past hour, we have been scrambling over class 2 to 3 rock from Amy's Peak, which you see right before you. From Amy's Peak, we're looking across to North and South Twin in the Lost River Range. Towards Howe, Idaho, and the Snake River Plain. And Nicholson, Joker, Little Diamond, Bunting Canyon, the Riddler, and Diamond Peak, and in front of it, the Brow. That would be Rexburg in the far distance, and in the middle distance we have the Beaverhead Range with Copper Mountain, Hart Peak in the distance, Scott Peak, which has a little bit of snow on its north slope, and looking north along the Continental Divide to 18 Mile Peak. Both of these peaks remind me of my 2 daughters. The peaks took perseverance to climb, and it's my hope that my girls will have perseverance as they face life's challenge in years ahead of them. It is my best opinion that the pile of rocks on the top is not a human structure, so we will build a summit cairn at the high point, and we'll insert the summit register indicating the name, Lexi's Peak, and when it was climbed. Let's take one last look into Rocky Canyon. If I can get a motorcycle up into that high meadow, then it would be possible to hike up to the head of the canyon and then gain the summit ridge at that easy point right there, and then hike up the ridge to the brow. And it looks to me that that may be the easiest way to climb that peak. Well, we'll find out at some point in the future, but right now time is getting on. It's 3:30, and it would be best if we head back down. I was considering a circular climb today and descending by Cedar Run Canyon, but that looks a little bit too rugged. I don't think that would be enjoyable. It'd take a long time. Our vistas have been so good, and it's such a beautiful day. I think I'm just going to retrace my steps back to Amy's Peak, and then we'll head down along that beautiful ridge back to the motorcycle. Tree-lined spruce in the Amy Lexi saddle. Back on the summit of Amy's Peak, I'm looking across at the brow. I think that's a very convincing case for calling that peak the brow. Do you see the man's face in repose, the eye socket with the big brow over it, and then the nose and the pouting lips looking up skyward? Well, look what we found here on the way down. Must be an old miner's hut of some kind. Recessed into the ground. The old timbers that were the roof have long since rotted away and caved in. Gold, anyone? Descending our lovely ridge with whitebark pine. Excuse me, limber pine. Trees get twisted around by the wind up here. Day is done, and so is our climb. Nice having you along.